Okay, so you should have roughed in your pumpkin onto your paper, very much like I've got on mine. Remember, all of your lines should be really light right now, but we're eventually going to make them thicker, thinner, darker, lighter with our contour lines. So we're going to be using some of these different line qualities that we practice on this paper to draw the actual contours of the pumpkin. Now, for our project, they don't have to, your pumpkin doesn't have to look like any one pumpkin. And I'm going to take a photograph of these pumpkins as they sit in my home classroom so that you can work from one of these pumpkins for the practice work. Okay? For the actual artwork, you need to be in class, please. All right? Because there are some ways that you need to follow along with me for the compositional arrangement of two pumpkins with the final artwork. With this one, we're just practicing one pumpkin, and it doesn't even need to look exactly like that pumpkin. All right? Does not. Okay, so I'm going to pan back just a little bit because now I'm going to start drawing a little bit darker, pushing a little bit heavier with my pastel, so you should be able to see what I'm drawing. So as I'm looking at it, I'm going to start with this contour that's right back here. It starts right at about this point where the stem meets up with the outer edge of the pumpkin, right in here, right? So, and it's a directional change of that section of the pumpkin. It's darker there, and then it thins out and gets lighter as it curves down this way. That is a contour line on the pumpkin. It's not at the back edge, it's kind of 2/3 of the way to the back edge. There's another one that's a little bit higher. It curves upward, and then it comes like this, and then it kind of disappears right about there. And then this is the back contour. All right? So now I see another one right here on my pumpkin. It's happening right behind the stem at about this point, and it goes almost straight away from me and the stem, and then it curves up and it goes into that part. So these are the contour lines. Notice I've gone from thicker and darker to thinner and lighter as I've gone away from myself. And I can come back in and I can darken up some, but I can't lighten up any. I don't have an eraser. So I can build it up, but I can't pull it away. All right? Now I'm going to come down this way. There's another line that comes right in around here. There's actually a little circle right in here of kind of gray matter where it's kind of like these are. So I'm going to draw that in too. And at that edge where that gray matter is, this line kind of curves upward, and then it comes outward and downward and turns into this edge right there. Now this one needs to come all the way and meet with that one. Okay? So I'm starting to draw the contours of the pumpkin using more solid lines, and I'm modifying this line that was my underlying shape line. It's okay that it's there. It's an expressive project, so it's all right to have extra lines that kind of just show the shape. It's okay. All right? So don't let it worry you. Please. All right. So now I'm coming in and I see there's another line here that comes outward and curves downward, and it gets darker as it comes right in here and moves into this lower area. Now this one right here, there's actually a subordinate contour that's right in here. It's really soft. So it's a lighter mark, and it just kind of disappears as it curves that way. But it's there, and it's a little bit darker right in here, and it turns into that. Okay? So this line actually curves into it like that. So I'm modifying as I go to make it look more like that. Lighter to darker to show that it's rounded and has more visual weight here than up here. Okay? Now as I come out this way, I'm just drawing it a little bit straighter, but it still comes outward and then downward. And then I have a lighter line that comes from there and turns into this and kind of comes into it sooner than this one does. Okay? And then this one that I drew just before that curves down and comes out a little bit more, and it meets up with this lighter line that comes there. And then I have another one that's kind of under that line there, so I'm going to lift it up out of my way. You won't have the opportunity to do this, so just modify it. Make it look the way you believe it probably does look, all right? If you draw this pumpkin, or a pumpkin inspired by this pumpkin. All right, and I have another really strong line here. It's a color change as well as a directional change in that line, really thin and dark right in there, and there's a little dent right there in my pumpkin. So I draw that dent in, and it goes that way too. Oops, kind of like that. And then it gets picked back up like this, and then there's another one that comes right in here like that, that just kind of fades into the body. Whew. And then I've got another one here, gets lighter as it curves back into it here. I've got another one that comes here and curves back into it there. Another one that's right here, curves in. And then this one's lower than that one or that one, and it picks up right in there. Okay? So I've got the basic contours of the pumpkin. Now I'm going to go to the stem. The stem curves a little bit more than what I originally drew. There's a curvature here. It's a little bit more sinewy and curved. It's more like our S practice line, right? And it's okay to let it get a little dark. There's some interior contours too. Don't overdo them. And on the upper part, I'm going to find a point on my pastels because it's really thin in there. So I'm going to use a thinner line to draw in the upper part where it's broken off and kind of rounded. Now I've got my pumpkin drawn in place. I've left off the vines. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to put them in, but I could at this point draw them into my composition. So that's that step of our project. Now our next step is we're going to add watercolor onto this after we practice the watercolor on our strips like that. And that's a different part of the project, okay? So remember, this is still practice. We'll eventually be going to the bigger paper. All right, so when you're done with this, put this and this practice carefully into your portfolio. I recommend that you put a cover sheet. Portfolio is that big white folder that has all your paper in it, by the way. Put a piece of printer paper or binder paper, or you might even have an extra piece of drawing paper that you haven't found a purpose for yet. You could put it around it too and make a little folder that it fits into. These things go into that big white folder, okay? Remember, we're going to be adding watercolors to these with our next set of the practice. I forgot to mention to you, always make sure that your oil pastel is put back in the tray, all right, whenever you're not drawing with it. And to cover the tray, you don't want to hold in the middle and try to slide them together. Hold the tray that has the colors at one end and the cover of the tray at the opposite end, and slide them into each other, and then just slide one on top of the other. They slide in much more easily, and they don't bunch up and then start breaking each other if you do it that way. All right, so now you're ready for practicing with the oil or with the watercolors.